And so, 3 squads from all corners of the Milky Way, and not only that, 5 different realities entirely managed to save 4 of their respective galaxies. The 5th one was sealed like a tomb, a Pandora's box never meant to be opened. Although they suffered great casualties, it was nothing compared to the losses they would have found had the Purple Reapers managed to continue the job they believed they had not finished. With everyone else back from Rain's secure hideout, our heroes celebrated their victory on the Endurance, a ship whose name encompasses the very thing they needed to reach this triumphant moment. Almost everyone was in high spirits, but there were 2 among them who were missing. Aya discovers one of them, standing by herself at the far end of the ship, her Quarian friend Niha, still staring at a katana blade in her hands. Rain solemnly handed it to her earlier that day, informing her of what happened with great sorrow. Niha cursed the blade as if blaming it for not properly protecting Quinn from harm. Why did the blade have to survive when he didn't? Aya wraps her arm around her and lays her head on Niha's shoulder. For the next several minutes, neither of them say a word. But eventually, Niha turns around nodding as Aya escorts her back to her friends.
The next day, a grand memorial service takes place at the Citadel to honor those who once again gave their lives so that others may enjoy a happier one. Rain buries Tip's mask with him to put an end to that chapter of her life for good. At the end of the service, Trissy will open the bottle of wine that was gifted to her from Jodie Sunworth, pouring a small shot glass to each of their teammates. They raise a toast to the Quarian whose sacrifice helped make this new day possible. Meanwhile, Crystal Chen will have a very grim look on her face as she joins in the toast. Part of her just couldn't help thinking that she should have done the same thing as Quinn, but she quickly reverts back to her normal demeanor before anyone else in the group notices. Everyone from the vault will stay at the FOTG base until the time comes for them to be transferred over to Red. Our heroes linger in Yellow for several more days, partly to assist where they can for the wounded and those rebuilding, and partly to give themselves a chance to relax and breathe before the next major challenge, saying goodbye. They will no longer allow the fabric of reality itself to be placed at further risk. First, they promptly destroyed and disposed of the mod from Purple. Then they would separate the 2 colliders plus Mimic into 3 separate galaxies before sealing the remaining open gates. The task takes a little more time considering that they detonated the Perseus Project Crucible, but they eventually succeeded. In the end, the main squad's collider will go with Elias in green, the Bravo squad's collider will go with Sophia in blue, and Mimic will go with Akara in red. The group makes their tearful goodbyes. By far the most difficult parting involved Lucas and Talia, who had become super close over the course of a very short time. The children were extremely upset at having to leave the other behind. You can imagine there was quite a lot of tantrum from both of them. Not that any of the adults could really blame them. In the end, both Lucas and Talia trade necklaces before giving their final goodbyes to each other.
Anar invited his Trixie to a special dinner for 2, with a little help from both Ottos. Okay, possibly a lot. Rekindling their romance over fine wines and vegan meatloaf, Anar finally revealed what was inside the small box he had asked her to keep. Hovering low on what appeared to be half his tentacles, he asked her to marry him, and she said yes without any doubt or hesitation. During the final fight itself, Anar shot on the front lines with the Friends of the Galaxy troops in his mech. He took a few injuries and some shots, but Chris's new upgrades to his shielding and artillery saw him through to the end without too much damage. Also, Nuggles was there nuzzling his tentacles and cheering him on and more or less getting in the way. Anar more or less had been leaving Nuggles to his own devices, so I suspect his stock of cheesy proofs and soda might have a bit of a dent in it, but good thing the Nug hasn't starved yet. Returning to the Red Galaxy with Trissy, Cyrus, and Chris, there was a small wedding ceremony hosted a few months later, with Chris standing as his best man. Anar retired from his life as a mercenary in order to settle down with his wife and discuss the prospect of raising a family. In the end, they adopted a pair of Hanar twins, a brother and a sister, and Uncle Chris visits often to play with the little ones, as he calls them. Cyrus held on for a few more years before his health began to deteriorate rapidly. He knew his time was short, but had people who cared about him and who were by his bedside when he finally passed on. Cyrus was ready, hoping that whatever was waiting for him on the other side, hopefully the little girl he failed years ago would be there, or at least at peace.
Rain. Purple Diana approaches Rain shortly after the vault was transferred from the Purple Galaxy to Yellow. After a tearful reunion, the two of them catch up on each other's lives. She may not be her true father, but as far as they were both concerned, they were just as much family. In the end, Diana will inform Rain that she would like to remain with her instead of joining the rest of the Vault in Red. The next day, Rain's mother will arrive at the Citadel. For the first time in her entire life, Rain will spend the rest of the day with both her parents, beginning to lay down the foundation of something that she had always longed for. To their pleasant surprise, things seem to fall miraculously into place between the three of them. By the end of the squad's last day on Yellow, Rain's mother will have taken care of all of her affairs to move to the Green Galaxy with Rain and Diana. Rain may not have gotten all the answers and all the closure she was looking for during this adventure, but she may very well have gained something far better. Here, Elias will be able to provide them with new identities, which is probably just as well, since both Rain and Diana will disappear mysteriously within the next year thanks to some of the Shadow Broker's agents. Unfortunately, this means that Rain will need to give up her singing career, at least publicly. But that doesn't mean that she won't appear in disguise as one of Elias's backup singers every now and then during his concerts. Still, Rain will continue to remember her friends from her past life. It still pains her to remember the events that led to their deaths, especially considering the most recent one with Tibbs. But over time, Rain's strength and perseverance will allow her to move forward. After all, knowing that she played a significant role in securing the welfare across multiple galaxies has to count for something towards her self-worth. She knows that her friends would be proud.
IRL. Aya is still scarred by the betrayal of her brother Tadashi, especially after opening up to his Yellow counterpart only to be betrayed again. Before leaving the Yellow Galaxy, she visits her uncle Takahiko. Luckily for her, he seems similar enough to his purple counterpart that she remembers from her childhood, that he is able to help her coping with all the actions of both her purple and yellow family. They spend some time together before she finally decides that she needs to leave. With both President Timothy and the First Lady out of the picture, Cerberus's control will quickly unravel. All the Cerberus facilities are shut down, including the boot camp Lucas was going to be sent to. The asylum that Chris and Octavius was being kept in would be transferred into a rehabilitation facility to assist the children from the boot camp. However, it's still sad to say that most of the kids, especially those who have been in the program the longest, will be far too gone to recover. The council will be re-established once again, only this time it would be expanded to 5 people instead of just 3 in order to provide more voices from the more races. Aya's uncle Takahiko would serve as the human council member. Aya will follow Lun into the Red Galaxy, where she will try to find some form of peace in her new life. They move in together in an apartment, right down from Anar, Trissy, and Chris. I am certainly not a huge fan of this arrangement, but at Lun's insistence, she decided to think that it was okay. She will try to enjoy the domestic life for a time, but since such a life is not something she had had since before her parents got killed, it doesn't sit well with her anymore. She doesn't feel at peace with it. And once she has lived with them for a while, she decides that yes, it's fine to live peacefully, just living life, but she can't do that, so she will use it as her home base when she starts up a mercenary squad instead, helping focused on helping people.
Quinn, our new Pugilia. Nia brings Quinn's sword with her into the Red Universe. Now not only holding Eric's soul, but now her brother's. She will keep it on display on a mantle of her new home, like an urn of someone's ashes. Like Aya, she will give herself some time to enjoy a normal life for a change. A life in which she finally is open for a vast universe of opportunities. She will help Aya start up her mercenary squad. Sometime before that, though, Aya will find herself on the butt end of an elaborate prank involving industrial superglue, Vorta midget porn, and someone ending up stark naked in the middle of a Batarian nursing home. She is convinced it was something Quinn dropped into her mind in her sleep one night. Thus, Niha managed to single-handedly get back at her. And it was all captured on video. And she knows Quinn, most likely, he couldn't be prouder. Naturally, Aya is determined to one-up her, and Nia certainly challenges her to try. Salo will keep the bronze maple leaf dagger that Quinn gave him back in the vault. Sure. Quinn didn't always get along with everybody. And more often than not, his stubbornness was a cause of much friction and frustration. But in the end, he gave up everything for the people he loved, even though he had such a hard time showing it sometimes. Salo reads the engraving on the dagger often, and it is quite a fitting reminder of him. The brave stand tall, the brave march on. The brave may fall, but their actions live on.
Elias returned to the Green Galaxy, hoping to get back to his normal life, if anything about Elias's life could be called normal. With the Song of the Rachni still singing sweetly in his head, Elias went on to find great success in his musical career. The Mass Effect Collision reality show footage that he had collected during the group's adventures became a runaway hit, even with Elias carefully only including select footage, particularly towards the end of the broadcast. While they did air the decision to destroy all colliders and the destruction of Quinn's gun mod, they carefully omitted any reference to keeping a lot of the technology intact, along with which universe the colliders and Mimic eventually ended up in. Rescuing Shepard from the Cerberus machine and Lum's reported conversations with Shepard provided to be both highly rating in terms of viewers and highly contentious. If the Shepard from the Yellow Galaxy had survived, could it be possible that others had too, specifically their own? Some weeks after the broadcast, the systems of Jamak and Vorsk were hacked, but no additional footage was found. Moving back to New Orleans, Elias moved into a large penthouse, and eventually Corbin, Tadashi, Doc, Rolette joined him there. Corbin continued to serve in the Alliance and rose quickly through the ranks. At their new home, Elias fostered his own Thetis garden after discovering the seeds from Thetis grew much more easily on Earth than on the desert, in the desert soil of Rannoch. In both the garden and his living room, there were a couple of colliders on display, although Elias continued to insist that they were nothing more than non-functioning replicas. Elias's life was full and very, very busy. Between his tours, his alleged scientific team looking into researching the herbs and plants in his Thetis garden and dedicated research on the Collider, not to mention the new Dextasy factory opening on Rannoch, he didn't really have much room to add more to his plate. Some of his friends worried he was spreading himself too thin, or that he was becoming overambitious and perhaps overzealous in his search for knowledge and information. Perhaps he was going too far. Well, the results of that would be seen in due course.
Alabon Finston receives the happiness he believed he never deserved. Finding the closure he desperately needed from his original Beatrice, he can now fully appreciate his new wife and son. Elias will offer Sync a high-position job for his secret scientific research on Theta's plants and their possible healing properties. Feeling that it would be great to continue having close relations with Elias, and more importantly, that it would be a good idea for Sync to keep an eye on Elias and his borderline obsessive projects, Sync accepts the offer. But never again will he place his work above his family. He took them for granted once, and there was no way he was going to squander the second chance that he earned for himself. Each year, Sync will visit Thessia's son on Dremery's Memorial Day, playing a recording of Elias's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It may not be the exact same star where his friend was laid to rest, but it still allows him to find peace over a very special person in his life. He will continue to hold on to Dremery's brooch and relive their memories together fondly. Enrar will have returned Dremery's hammer back to him, which will now be displayed in the engine room of the Endurance where he used to work. Fortunately for Lucas, he was rescued from the server's boot camp before any lasting psychological damage could affect him. His parents will provide him with an insurmountable amount of love and attention.
Darren James Arnett. As promised, Darren follows his sister into the Green Galaxy. The loss of Tibbs a second time still stings deep into his heart, but he will manage to bounce back better than before. The fact that he still has his sister keeps him in high spirits. Elias will offer Darren a job as head of security for the Dexter C factory. Darren figures it's a great paying job, and with an extremely good benefits package. Plus he's about to have his own mech at the office, and his rocket boots, so how could he refuse? Trissy will end up enjoying a career in education, teaching elementary school children. In case any of you are wondering, no, she'll never find herself contracting the box, much to both Darren and Sync's relief. Clearly Darren will be Lucas's favourite uncle. It was pretty much sealed the moment he let Lucas sit in the cockpit of the Normandy SR-1. The two will continue to have a very close relationship. Between him and Sync, Lucas will pursue his dream of becoming a pilot that may very well help save the world someday. Darren and Rain will spend a lot of time together, too, and become very close. One day Trissy teases Darren about whether or not him and Rain are dating yet, to which Darren responds by remaining silent with a giant grin on his face. Drain? Question mark.
Arkara returns back to Red Tachanka to finally take over as chief of her clan. Under her rule and the shaman's guidance, the clan leads as an example to all Krogan to raise their people back from the ashes, not through force, but through moving forward with wisdom. The garden becomes one of the grandest and most beautiful landmarks in all of Tachanka. Kel Gayal will personally be in charge of its maintenance. As he was promised, Otto will open his new restaurant there, Otto's Garden. It doesn't take very long for species from all around the galaxy to come flocking, with reservations required to be taken months in advance just to get a table. This will be just the beginning of Otto's chain, as dozens of other restaurants will open across the galaxy, from the Citadel to Thessia to Earth. It will be the clan's main source of income as it continues to expand into the capital of the planet. Otto and Arkara will continue to become very close. Perhaps over time, Arkara will see Otto as more than just friends. It's still hard to say one way or another, but in the meantime, their devoted friendship is genuine and true. Meanwhile, Meridi gains much success in her fashion. One of her first lines of clothing publicly is the Bluebird line. Her brand is destined to become a designer name that every celebrity and dignitary will wish to have. With Meridi's, you will get quality, practicality, and style, whether it be sports, at the office, or even in the military. With her line of work, Meridi travels often, but she always has time to visit Arkara every time she passes by Tachanka. They will continue to be best of friends till their dying days. And give it a rest, Malek. By this point, Paddock Wicks has managed to create a cure for the genophage, and together they distribute the cure to all Krogan who sought it. Unfortunately, the general Krogan population is still extremely sore from being infected by the fake cure during the Reaper conflict. Some scars run so deep that it will take much longer to heal. With the cure now so readily available, you can bet that most of the clans on Tuchanka will be breeding as quickly as they can to seek vengeance on those that dared to keep them leashed in the first place. Although Arkara's clan is ready to forgive, or at least to move forward, it is going to be an uphill climb for them to convince most of the other Krogan to do the same. Though they may happen to be on the new capital, tensions remain high as the clan prepares for any organized plans to overthrow it. They say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We can hope that Arkara's good deed will go unpunished, but is still to be determined.
Salovara. Salo, Nilu, their parents, and BR0 go with most of the vaults to the Red Galaxy. With Sisepia's help, they are able to acquire new identities for themselves. Salo's patented Omnitool inventions will completely change the field forever. He essentially becomes the Steve Jobs of Omnitool in red, and becomes one of the wealthiest people in Citadel space, possibly even wealthier than Elias in green. Salo will purchase a new home for his family and secure a bountiful life. That is, as long as his secret projects don't end up backfiring. More on this later. Nilu ends up finding a career in acting. As fate would have it, she ends up landing her breakthrough role in Fleet and Flotilla 2, Full Thrust. When she realizes later that the movie is actually an X-rated parody produced by Fornax, she immediately declined the offer. Despite the fact that Nilu had already signed the contract, Meridi comes up with an elaborate plan for her and Salo to get Nilu out of the predicament, which may or may not have involved Meridi pulling out her southern accent. Meridi and Salo end up spending a lot more time together, and several years later, two of them will be engaged. I'll let you decide who you think popped the question to whom. Again, Malik, give it a rest already. Between Meridian's fashion line and Salo's Omnitool Corporation, the two of them will grow up to be quite a powerhouse couple. Salo will invest most of his earnings towards reinventing the Geth race once again, since they were all destroyed in this reality. BR0 is the only existing Geth in the entire universe, and Salo is determined to make sure he won't be the last. With BR0's help, Salo will successfully manage to create a new Geth 2.0 network, the new generation of Geth. From this new platform, BR1 will be the first Geth born into Red ever since the end of the Reaper conflict there. However, he must keep his activities secret, since there still technically is a ban on anyone who recreates synthetic life. Hopefully Salo will manage to keep BR0 and the next generation Geth, which his parents playfully call the next Getheration, hidden away until the universe is finally ready for their reveal. You can be sure that this part of the story is just the beginning.
Crystal Chen. Crystal and Purple Auto follow the Arnettes to Green, where she immediately turns herself into the authorities for assaulting a police officer. Crystal is fined and sentenced for 1 year in prison. Elias attempts to pull some strings to have her released earlier, but Crystal insists on serving her punishment. For the sake of justice, it simply is the right thing to do in her eyes. To compromise, Crystal allows Elias to pay off the fines, but she willingly remains to follow through with her sentence. In the end, Crystal is released after 9 months for good behavior. Elias, Otto, Darren, and the Finstons are there to welcome her home. Crystal makes a special request with Elias to speak with Harbinger. She tries to convince the Reapers to take an active role in monitoring the dimension breaches. If not every known dimensions, then at least within the Green reality. She expresses how much They shouldn't shirk such responsibility just because they have organic feelings now. They are not at fault for what Reapers do, but it is still in their best interest to be aware of potential trouble. If they can find use of her in this long-term strategy, she is willing to help. Harbinger agrees with her sentiments. Elias will offer Crystal a position in his Collider research project as well. But first, Crystal feels the need to help a friend fulfill his dream. She then changes her identity to Athena Jin, which is Crystal in Chinese, and decides to avoid any contact with any of her alternate family still existing anywhere between the realities. She also cuts herself off from the other squads, with the exception of Otto. With this new moniker, Crystal helps Purple Otto kick off his new food ship business. Naturally, it is an instant success. It doesn't take very long for Otto's business, the Crow Grub Air Hub, to become a household name. She and Otto continue to become very close, and it is during this time that Crystal finds herself the happiest. It is unknown whether or not Crystal eventually re-establishes contact with her friends from the squads. Many of them will certainly try, and Otto will probably attempt to convince her as well. Perhaps Crystal's stubbornness has finally gotten the best of her. Perhaps Crystal Meth will make another timely or untimely appearance before all is said and done. Nobody knows, at least not for now.
Sophia Altus. Sophia is determined to be a better mother to Talia, being a good influence to her to expand her knowledge and biotic talents. She will report back to Chief Damien Duran at CSEC and inform him that she will be retiring from the force. This surprises the chief greatly, as he was prepared to give Officer Altus a promotion. Instead, Sophia greatly asks if he could be a reference for her next career goal. Feeling that the Reaper threat could still manifest again, Sophia will work hard to place herself in a position of power in which she is able to make sure her universe is ready. She will become a Citadel's councilwoman and later a Primarch. Talia will eventually attend Prism Academy. Not only would she be the first Turian to attend such a prestigious biotic school, she would also quickly reach the top of her class. Her powers will continue to develop and grow. She will clearly become one of the most powerful Turian biotics, well surpassing most Asari's even. Octavius will reunite with his father and grieve over the loss of his mother. Part of him at least feels comfort in knowing that he was able to help rid a counterpart of his mother's murder back in the Yellow Galaxy. With Sophia so focused on juggling a career and being a mom, it is unlikely they will officially get back together. However, they will still remain friendly, and he will continue being a heavily involved father to their daughter.
Luntalan. Lun and Chris will spend a lot of their time together and become the best of friends. They will start up their own guild in Galaxy of Fantasy and become extremely successful. Naturally, Lucas, the Biotic Pyjack, will continue to be their guild's best PvP player. Lun's biotic powers will continue to grow and develop. He will soon possess the ability to read deep into people's inner thoughts, and he will also become quite adept at controlling people's minds. Over time, his powers curiously take a darker red hue. This concerns Aya immensely and insists Lun to go see a doctor. At first, Lun refuses since he claims that he feels just fine. With much prodding, Lun eventually agrees, though begrudgingly. The doctors are baffled by his condition, as there are no recorded accounts of his symptoms. But since discoloration doesn't seem to be affecting his health in any way, they eventually dismiss it as some bizarre, benign biotic mutation. Also, whatever Morden did to shrink the idol seems to have started to revert. Lun notices the idol pendant around his neck gradually growing larger again. He considers taking it to somebody else to shrink it back again, permanently, but quickly decides against it for now. Once it gets large enough that it becomes a nuisance, then he will deal with it for now. No sense in worrying about it all that much. Not over a souvenir, of course.
Faith. As for Faith, she will not follow the rest of the vault into red, nor will she follow her friends in the blue, green, or even yellow. Due to all the craziness in her life between the Reapers and reality jumping, Faith wishes to take a break from technology and go back to the basics. She hopes for a chance to reinvent herself and find a simpler form of existence. Faith will choose to go to the Orange Galaxy. By choosing this, she is completely cutting herself off from her friends and newly found family. But it is her choice, and she will embrace whatever new adventures lie for her. Her sisters plead with her to reconsider and join them in the Blue Galaxy, but as much as it pains her to do so, Faith believes this is something that she has to do. Her sisters won't understand, tearfully embracing her. Although it would have been wonderful to have had a second chance of getting their sister back, they were at least grateful to see her one final time. And though she did have a crush on Damien over the years, since his death, Faith has managed to grieve over him and simply wants to move forward again. After all, this will give her sisters a chance anyway. Will and Wei will continue with their work as scientists. They will end up being hired by Sophia with her personal projects. Faith will need to be careful, though. Going to Thetis by herself with her appearance places her in great danger. Only a small sect of people witness the strange heralds of Andraste, so most will easily mistake her for a demon, or worse. The people of Thetis are not known for being the most accepting of those who are different from them. The harsh reality is that a world that hasn't discovered spaceflight yet is simply not ready for aliens among them. Life will be hard for Faith, and she will have to stay in hiding in order to survive. Will her loneliness and solitude drive her mad? Was living in Thetis truly everything she wanted, or does she now have regrets for coming there and leaving her friends and family behind? Needless to say, her fate will be determined at a later time.
The Blue Universe. The Blue Council will inform the galaxy that the Reaper threat has now passed. Everyone is relieved to hear the news and proceeds to go back to the way things were. Red Diana will not take her trip to the Blue Galaxy very well. With her entire life gone, not to mention her life's work trying to find the Shadow Broker completely invalidated, she grows absolutely mad. After stabbing someone in a public restaurant, she will eventually get locked up in an insane asylum, stewing over the people who were responsible for ruining her life. One day, during Sophia's position as councilwoman, Sophia will run into a relatively familiar face in the elevator, a man named Rexar, who happened to have a nerdy affinity for tabletop gaming. The two of them will end up running into each other in the elevator often, and they will eventually go out for a cup of coffee and have a wonderful time.
The Red Universe. The Ragni in the Red Universe will continue to prosper in hiding in the Terminus systems. The Queen's children will sing songs of the heroes that saved them from the Audium incident. Red Elias will continue to do time in prison for his involvement. And as for Wimshire, Arkara and her friends were able to give him the confidence he needs to become an extremely successful comedian. He will end up winning an award for Best Supporting Actor as the kooky sidekick in the next Blasto movie, and eventually star in his own sitcom about an El Corp pastry chef turned drug lord called Baking Bad. Har har. Book Chen will unfortunately never hear from Purple Crystal, but he is still grateful for the gift that Elias gave him on Tuchanka. He will request that the Red Friends of the Galaxy reassign him to another location and let Pardock have full reign over the Genophage Cure facility. Since Elias refused to involve himself with the Friends of the Galaxy, it will continue to have a terrible track record in their leadership. The FOTG will continue to help the galaxy in questionable ways that sometimes deal collateral damage to innocent people. With Arkara now chief of her clan, she will inform Red Shias Lassim that she must retire from her services. While Shias is very disappointed to see one of her favorite employees go, she certainly understands and offers to help Arkara whenever she needs a favor. With the violent climate brewing among the Krogan as a whole, Arkara may very well need all the favors she can get.
The Green Universe. As you requested, Pi is shut down and deleted. Elias deeply misses his friend. someone who was literally a part of him for a number of years. But the least he could do was fulfill Pi's wishes when their adventure was over. That night, Elias spends some time trying to comfort himself by playing with his pet octopus. He then pops a dose of Dextasy and tries a piece of cherry pie for the first time. With a smile, Elias says, "Wow, I can understand why this was your favorite, my friend. This one is for you, the one true pie in the sky." Green Miha will continue to foresee Elias's project. Elias will provide her with a promotion and a raise for her loyalty and hard work. Jamak Avorsk will continue supporting Elias with his musical career, but now Elias will be far less shy to put his foot down when he wants things done his way. At first, Jamak becomes quite contemptuous about it, but it later causes him to respect the singer far more in the end.
On his return, Marauder Shields continued his fight for equality for the Huskies, and kept speaking out publicly for the rights of his fellow war veterans. The Liam Nathaniel Muses from Red, Blue, and Green universes all went back to enjoying their sleep without worrying about the elusive man, or perhaps rather the elusive lady, or waking them up in the middle of the night. They went on as reporters in their respective universes, making the man a household name and spearheading the popularity of the orange pinstriped suit.
The Yellow Universe. Tamias Stanimus was killed in the line of duty during the coup. He was one of the many who died for the cause. But the Yellow FOTG will continue to help aid all races to recover from not only the battle against the Reapers, but also all those who suffered unjustly during Cerberus' reign.
Charles from Purple was disappointed that he was unable to meet Yellow Tibbs before his untimely death. After spending much time with the FOTG, Charles decides to remain in Yellow to help continue what Tibbs had started. Eventually, he will take over the mantle as leader of the Friends of the Galaxy.
As for Clive Shepard, he is finally able to enjoy his selfish moment of happiness with Stephen Cortez, thanks to the decision of our heroes. Cortez will remain with him in Yellow. With Joker and Edie, they will reconnect with the surviving members of their group, who, up until this point, believed that Shepard was dead. Although Steve manages to convince Clive to take a well-deserved early retirement, it is unknown if he will manage to keep himself from being called to action indefinitely. Mourning will remain on Yellow, but he provided one person from each galaxy with a special gift before everyone parted ways. He managed to use the technology from Yellow Tadashi's implant to perfect a device that will allow inter-reality communication, both audio and video. This will be the main method that will allow our heroes to keep in touch over the years. Rain will be given one in green, Aya in red, and Sophia in blue. There is talk of organizing an annual reunion. An agreement to meet back on Aingana on a specific date and time to use Mimic and Sosephia's collider to open gates between all realities and spend an evening together just to catch up. Whether or not this proposal actually comes into practice is yet to be seen.
The Purple Universe. Nobody knows the condition of the Purple Universe. It would be foolish for anyone to check. Is the elusive lady still controlling the Reapers from inside the machine? Did it eventually shut down on its own? And even if it does, what will be the Reapers' goals and motivations then? Best not to think of such things right now. Just hope it never becomes relevant ever again.
As for the Orange Universe, well, that's a story for another campaign entirely.
So there you have it. 13 heroes across 5 different galaxies. Perfect strangers who grew close despite originating from completely different realities entirely. Many choices, many paths, many consequences. This experience will change their lives forever. Some of their stories end here. For others, there may be more for them to do and tell. Regardless, their actions will affect their respected universes going forward, many of which their ultimate impact have yet to be seen. For now, our heroes will rest on their laurels as the galaxies press on, for it is inevitable that a new adventure will emerge when the right series of events collide. The end. Question mark.
Yeah.